we now present a conversation with Dr. Voleti Choudary, a cardiologist from the United States of America. In conversation with him is Professor G. Venkatraman. Over to Professor Venkatraman.
Sairam, Dr. Choudary. Welcome to the studios of Radio Sai. Since you live in America, maybe I should ask you straight away, do you listen to us? You know, now we can be heard there.
No, sir. No, I left April 4th and I didn't try before that. But as soon as I go back, I will try listening.
Okay, you better do. Otherwise, you'll miss hearing your voice.
No, I'm really serious because I did not know that the satellite over North American has been deployed.
No. We are not broadcasting by satellite. We're doing it by internet.
Yes. That they told me.
Because we can't reach people in America by satellite.
Okay.
And there was a lot of demand. We started an internet service which has been operational from birthday of 2003.
Okay.
But then it looks like you didn't know about it because you've been traveling a lot. So maybe I should come back to your travel.
Okay.
You have been talking about traveling a lot, carrying Swami's message. When did you actually start traveling on this round-the-world trip? Or?
Actually, at the time of birthday, I decided to do this. And
birthday, 2003.
2003. So I had a world map in my hand and I was at Swami's feet and I showed him, Swami, I want to go around the world.
Were you trying to tell him the world is at his feet?
Yes, it's definitely at his feet. So I showed him all the cities and countries that I was visiting on the map, and it took 5 seconds, and then he said, Choudary, it's very easy to travel on the map. I said, Swami, with your grace, I can travel. He said, yes, Manchidi, very good. Yes, you will travel.
Okay, that's the reason why you didn't hear us.
Yes.
Because you've been traveling literally from birthday, and that's when we went on the air. Now, you pointed to many countries on the map. How many countries did you point out on the map?
You see, what I did was just a quick rundown. When I left from here after birthday, I covered Eastern Australia. I went to Melbourne and Sydney. Then I had to come for Shivaratri. And after Shivaratri, I covered New Zealand. I covered western part of Australia. And then from there, I went to United States, Miami. And from there, I went to 3 countries in Central America. San Salvador, which is in El Salvador, Costa Rica, and then Santo Dominguez. And then from there, I had to come back and see Swami because my nephew's wedding was here. And from here, then I went back to United Kingdom, spent 4 days in London visiting Swami centers. And from there, I went to, Copenhagen. They had their 2-day retreat there. And after Copenhagen, I went to St. Petersburg. There they had a 4-day retreat for all the 12 Russian-speaking countries in St. Petersburg alone. And from there, I went to Moscow, covered, Moscow Center. And then it so happened the following weekend was the Amsterdam, retreat where they had 3 countries, Holland, Luxembourg, and then Belgium. All 3 countries were there. And then I went back to Italy and I covered, Milan, Rome, Naples, and Venice. And then I was back at Swami's feet on May 29th.
Maybe I should ask you, what have you left out? Looks like you probably have still to go to South America, not Latin America.
No, sir. Actually, I had Swami's blessing 3 years ago. That's an unbelievable story. And I went to Chile, and from there I went to Argentina. And from Argentina, I went to Brazil with Swami's blessings.
So this is really second innings. You already did that.
Yes.
What about Africa?
That's the one. I do have to do Africa at some point because everybody is asking.
You're like this standard pilgrim. Pilgrims say, I must go to Kashi, I must go to Rameswaram, and so on and so forth. Now you are talking in terms of continents, not 1 or 2 kshetras. Okay, let us come back to the details of your globe-trotting, shall I say. Maybe I should start off with your first innings when you visited a few Latin American countries. That was perhaps the first time you went out on such a mission, right?
Yes, sir. It was really amazing how Swami puts it all together. He really I mean, we can't really comprehend him. I was in here for Guru Purnima. And
which year was that?
This was in 2000.
2000, 4 years ago.
Yeah, and people from Brazil came and asked me if I could visit, Brazil on Swami's mission. That being my first official thing, I said, no, I need to check with Swami. And if Swami says yes, I would come. So I went to Swami and I said, Swami, should I go to Brazil? And he said, yes, you should go to Brazil. And then the Argentinian people heard of that and they said, you're coming to Brazil, please come to Argentina. And when this was going on, then the Chilean devotees heard that and said, as long as you're coming to Brazil and Argentina, please come to Chile also.
Oh, very good.
So that's how I covered those 3 countries in...
How long did you spend in South America?
One whole 9 days.
9 days.
9 days.
3 countries, 9 days.
3 countries, 9 days.
How many cities?
This Santiago in Chile, and then Buenos Aires in Argentina. And in Brazil, I had to go both to São Paulo, Brazil, and Rio de Janeiro.
Now, of course, those are countries where English may be understood, but I'm sure it's not spoken very commonly. Brazil, it's Portuguese, and Chile and Argentina, it's Spanish. Did you have too much difficulty in view of the fact they speak a different language from what you and I are used to?
No, it's very interesting how, Swami makes these coordinations. They always have a translator for me. I generally normally I prefer to stay with one of the Sai families, which is what they do. Very rarely I end up staying in a hotel, but most of the times I do end up staying in Swami and devotees' houses because they love, and I love to stay with, devotees. And they always have somebody speaking English with me wherever I go, with Swami's grace.
Now, talking of Latin America, I would like to ask you a question and maybe then I'll make a small comment. What was your reaction to the kind of feelings they have for Swami, the love they have for Swami, and the relationship they have with Swami?
I have only one word for that. It's amazing. I call it Latin devotion.
Latin devotion.
Seriously.
What do you mean by that?
One interesting thing is they very dearly love Swami. And also, they're very much into music also. And you should listen to their bhajan singing.
By the way, we broadcast a lot of the bhajans.
Yeah, so much sincerity and so much devotion. And I'll tell you one example, which you will understand better than anything I could tell anyway. See, I think the last day was in Rio de Janeiro. That's where my evening speech was. And they have a very beautiful hall. And that's the other thing I will never comprehend. I have spoken to 30 people. I have spoken to 600 people. But always the room is the one that determines it. Whatever the room they have decided where I'm going to speak, that room is full. So in Rio, it's a beautiful hall. And actually, it was little few standing room only. And you would not believe, how much they love football or soccer in South America.
Yes,
in Brazil, that evening, they were playing their 2 top teams. And they would give anything to have a ticket or watch it on television. But the hall was full. Just to listen to me about Swami stories. That's when...
Swami before football. Swami before soccer,
I could not believe it. I mean, if anybody told me, I would not believe it. Because they really would do anything to go... If they can't go watch it on television, they're glued to television or radio. But they were there. And that's first time I ever changed my own approach. I always used to thank people for coming and listening to me. But on that day... It dawned on me right away. I said, no, I shouldn't thank these people. I should congratulate these people that they have seen Swami. They are in Swami's fold. They're not wasting their time watching football and getting excited for no reason and all that. What follows after football is what that is, bad. Like the 19th hole in golf they talk about. But they're sitting here singing bhajans. They always sing at least 3 bhajans before I speak because it puts everybody in a nice mood. And they were there and they were so hungry for, Swami's stories.
That's nice to hear. But now comes my question. What is the secret? What's the magic?
I think, seriously, the magic is Swami. I'm telling you.
That I know, but why is it that Swami appeals to the Latin Americans?
I talked to, I'll give you a personal example again. I was talking to one of the teachers who teaches in Swami school in Rio. Mm-hmm. It's approved by the Brazilian educational department. Mm-hmm. And I asked her, have you ever been to Puttaparthi and seen Swami? She says, no. I said, have you ever been to India? She says, no. I said, you're teaching in Swami school. Don't you want to see Swami or here? He says, no, I don't have to. Swami is here. And she absolutely pointed to her heart and said, Swami is here.
Fantastic.
That's all she said. Swami is here. Now, I always tell this example. You see, what I fear, which is in the beginning was real fear, was I thought I was going to tell these people, because Swami said, no, talk about your experience. That's all. You don't have to do anything else. Just talk about your experiences. But what he didn't tell me is that you're going to learn more and more on this thing than what you're going to tell them. So I learned so much from this one little experience that I realized that this lady knows more than I do. She's more evolved than I am. She's saying, I don't have to go to Petersburg. Swami is in my heart here, and I'm doing his work. So this space and time has no relevance. Now I must
tell you something that I wanted to tell you earlier but held back. This happened maybe about 10 years ago approximately. It happened in Vrindavan. Summer course was going on and it was a morning session. And I happened to be sitting next to Dr. Hislop.
Uh-huh.
And we began to talk, and then he started saying, there was a guy who spoke yesterday, some scientist fellow, he said this, that, and all that. He said, excuse me, sir, it happens to be me.
Oh.
And then he smiled, and then we started talking about Swami and the way Swami's message is spreading across the world. And he told me, and I will never forget it, he said, Swami's message is spreading like wildfire in Latin America. So I asked him, why is that? Would you say it's more than in America? He said, of course it's more than in America. I said, how come? And he gave a very interesting answer. He said, most of Latin America is Catholic. And the Catholics take more easily to mysticism than the Protestants do. And that is the real secret, he said.
Mm.
They believe very easily in saints and holy people than the Protestants do. And it looks like, from what you've said, it's not just a sort of a iconoclastic faith in gurus and holy men. They are deeply evolved. They understood what Jesus said, the kingdom of God is in you.
Yes, sir.
God is in you.
Yes.
I mean, it is not often that you come across a devotee who says with such conviction that Swami is in me.
No,
that's
absolutely.
a great plus for them.
No, absolutely. Because the kids were singing bhajans, they had a uniform, and she teaches. And I find the same thing in all the places. That is amazing.
Did you happen to see any of the service activities or anything like that?
They had in São Paulo, Brazil. Yes, actually very interesting. I was there for 3 days, and actually they took me to downtown where they do soup and
soup kitchen, you mean?
Yes, and I think it's a sandwich to the homeless people in São Paulo, Brazil. 1 out of every 20 Brazilians live in São Paulo, Brazil. Out of the 1 out of 10. Out of the 200 million in Brazil, 20 million live in São Paulo, Brazil. It's one of the poorest places. And they have 2 centers. And this one center that I was speaking at the Sunday at lunchtime, they were serving, they do very nice service.
Okay. Now, a few years later, you were going around the world again. And you started with Australia and then went to Central America and so forth. Let's now go to Australia, cross the equator, go down under, as they say. How many places did you visit in Australia and New Zealand put together?
I would say about little over...
a dozen?
No, I would say at least 18, 19 centers.
Oh, quite a few.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so inevitably the question is, what kind of differences did you find between Australia and Argentina, or for that matter?
So
Latin America and the Pacific countries?
Actually, before I answer that, I would give you one thing that is very common between the two. I think between the Latin America and Australia, I feel they have one of the most organized Sai activities, really. There's a tremendous amount of organizational skill involved that I see in whole of Australia, and I saw the same in whole of Latin America.
When you say organizational skill, can you explain to us what you mean by that?
What I mean by that is, see, they have a very coordinated effort. It's not disjointed. There is, I would not call it like a hierarchy in the military or anything like that. And, they have a step ladder kind of people, have responsibilities, then delegate responsibilities to the others, and then comes down to the centers. So it means right hand knows what left hand is, doing.
That's as far as organization is concerned. How does it help spirituality? Does it help?
The reason it helps spirituality is, you see, our mind still is very disorganized, really disorganized. So even to approach spirituality, if you see a system that's organized, I think it's much easier to approach spirituality.
Okay. It puts you in the right groove.
Exactly. That's how I felt.
Okay. Now, in terms of what I would call other parameters, how would you compare your experiences in Australia and New Zealand? Did you see any difference between Australia and New Zealand, or they were in the same basket?
Australia and New Zealand, I think there are a lot more centers in Australia, obviously because of the humongous population. And one limitation I had in New Zealand was I only visited the Northern Island, just Auckland and Wellington. I visited 3 centers in Auckland and 2 centers in Wellington. But I must tell you something. Both places, the devotion for Swami is totally complete. And it's just not at one level. When they come, it's amazing. You land in the airport and there are people waiting outside with a nice sign that says, Sai Ram, Dr. Voleti. That's all they're waiting there. So that's how I recognize who they are. And you get into their car, they have Swami's picture in the car, they play Swami's bhajans, and then they take you to the place, where you're staying. And it's really such a... the thing that really impressed me is this is Sai family. This is Sai family. It doesn't matter whether I'm in New Zealand or in St. Petersburg, where no English word is spoken. You are a Sai family member. That common bond, common thread is Swami. And coming back to New Zealand and Australia, one thing I found was, obviously, there is a predominant segment of Indian population both in Australia and New Zealand. But the interesting thing is, very few of them are directly migrated from India to Australia or New Zealand. They have gone through either Fiji or Africa, like that. And there's also quite a good representation of people from, Ceylon. So you have all, the Indian segment is there that are like migrated people. And the one family I stayed with, you would not believe, their great-grandfather in the mid-1850s or something, he went to New Zealand. They're still there. And that lady's house is like a shrine. Every room, you would not believe it, has a Swami, Saraswati, Vinayaka. And they have actually one room, which is Swami's puja room. And that's where I slept that night. I couldn't sleep in a better room than that.
That's nice to hear. So what sort of talks did you give there, if I may ask you?
I asked Swami before I went, Swami, what should I talk about? The answer was very simple. He said, talk about your experiences. See, my approach to Swami has always been the same, right? From the time I've gone to speak about Swami. You see, Swami is such a complex issue as far as I'm concerned, very difficult to comprehend. So I tell always people, I don't like to quote from a third person or even a second person or even from a book. What I would like to tell you is what I have seen and I have experienced firsthand. And to me, that's the best way I can give you my own, impressions of Swami, how Swami helped me to become a better person, and how I'm striving even today to become a better person, every day. That's how I basically, because I have some ground rules when I speak about Swami. Swami must know that. And that's the only thing he said. No, talk about your experiences. That's about all it was.
The injunction stays still.
Yes, absolutely stays still.
Okay, now let's go to San Salvador and places like that. When did you go there?
See, San Salvador for the Easter, weekend, April.
Easter of 2004.
Yeah, April 7th to 11th. It's very interesting. There were people from 3 countries.
Where exactly was this meeting? In San
Salvador itself. It's beautiful. They have a coffee plantation in the middle of the town. It's owned by a Sai devotee. And of course, every coffee plantation has a very nice house in it.
So you had a lot of coffee.
Coffee, very nice coffee. They make very good coffee. And the other thing that I'm not joking, which is so impressive to me, is these countries are meat-eating countries. They eat meat 3 times a day. You go to Brazil, they eat meat 3 times a day. Same thing in Central America. All these people that I run into, I eat in their houses or they take me out, I can eat my eyes closed. It's totally vegetarian. Totally vegetarian. Because I want to get it out of my system. I really was so impressed. I was really worried. What am I going to do in these places? And they cook, even in their houses, they cook only vegetarian. It's vegetarian. So this meeting, actually it was a retreat during the Easter week. Apparently they do it every year. That's how I got invited to. So there's a very nice building. It's in the coffee plantation. And there were people from 3 countries, El Salvador itself, from Guatemala and from Costa Rica. And they have very beautiful way. They arrange it like in the morning, 5:36, they have the, Nagara Sankirtan kind of a thing in the campus itself. They go around, sing bhajans. And the night before, they set a nice, beautiful altar for Swami and have the whole, room ready.
How many people were there?
This one, I think there were close to, I would say 70, 75 people. If you include young adults, probably close to 90. Yes, I forgot, young adults. They were a good very, very interesting young adults, about 15 of them. Maybe a little bit more.
You also, if I am not mistaken, went to Dominican Republic or something.
Oh, yes. That is another amazing.
Okay. So did you go there from San Salvador? Or
no, I spent 2 days in Costa Rica because one of the reasons they wanted me to do Costa Rica was, I think Swami's exposure was not very wide there. They do have a center, so they want me to come and speak to them on Tuesday evening, because I landed Tuesday morning. I said, fine, I will do that. So we went to the center. It's a beautiful center, but there were like 25 people, not a big center, but very well arranged. And when I finished speaking, and unanimously they said, you must come tomorrow evening again and speak to us. Wednesday also. So I spoke 2 days in a row. They didn't seem to be tired about that. So I spent 2 days. And then the Thursday is when I flew back to Dominican Republic. And the interesting thing in Dominican Republic
How did you happen to go to Dominican Republic?
Yeah, that's from Costa Rica. I went to Florida.
No, not that way. Did they ask you to come there or something?
Yes, this was arranged by John Bena. He's the central coordinator. Yes. So all these 3 were arranged. He is the one, because these 2 were retreats. The one in San Salvador and the one in Santo Domingo were retreats. But Costa Rica was just to speak in the center, just to get them back on groove or whatever it was. So when I went back to Dominican Republic, Santo Domingo, it was very interesting. They called it an international meeting, which really was, because there were people from 3 countries.
What are the 3 countries?
Of course, Dominican Republic, and then Haiti, and then Puerto Rico. And the interesting thing there was...
If I'm not mistaken, in Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, they speak Spanish. Whereas in Haiti, they speak French.
Yes. And then the first time they have gotten together and made a, big meeting, and the delegation that came from Haiti, especially for this meeting, 25 of them came. No, more like 30. And so what they had to do was, I would speak in English, and one person would translate it in Spanish, and the other person would translate it in French.
This reminds me of what happened when Swami went to Latur about 3 years ago. He would speak in Telugu and Anil Kumar would translate it into English. And Shivraj Patil, who is now the Home Minister, he would translate Anil Kumar into Marathi. In fact, I was going to ask you what language the whole proceedings
this was interesting.
So it's trilingual, English, Spanish and French. European Union, something like that. And when you were talking about meat, I was reminded of a man called Dara from West Africa. He came to Swami many, many years ago. And he went back as a vegetarian. He came as a man who ate anything that moved or flew or swam, and went back as a vegetarian. And in a talk which he gave in America, of which I saw a video, he said, I told my wife, woman, you are no longer cooking meat. That includes chicken and fish. And that lady said, what happened to you? Have you become mad? She said, and then he says, I didn't become a vegetarian by listening to Swami. I became a vegetarian listening to Kasturi. I said, what's going on here? And he says, in the talk that Kasturi gave in those days, Kasturi said, you know how long a tiger lives? It lives only for 15 years. And do you know why it lives 15 years? Only because it eats meat. Do you know how long an elephant lives? It lives 100 years. And do you know why? Because it doesn't eat meat. He said, I am going to live 100 years. And if that means giving up meat, I'm going to give up meat. He put it very nicely and very humorously. And I thought you should hear about it. So next time somebody tries to give you meat when you go on your tours, you can say, I want to live 100 years.
With Swami's blessing.
Now let's cross from Central America, the Atlantic Ocean, come to Europe. You visited many places, from Amsterdam to Moscow. It's quite a span. What was your experiences there? Which do you consider as the most amazing or interesting experience?
I would have to go back to Russia. Seriously, I have to go back to Russia. The thing is, very little English is spoken in Russia.
Obviously.
Number two, I still feel the common man is very poor.
Oh, yes.
In spite of that, their love for Swami is remarkable. It's remarkable because I got invited to this retreat again in the same way, in that because they were having...
Let me just interrupt your question. Love, of course, has no reasons, as they say. But do you have any specific clue as to why they feel a love for Swami?
I asked them. It again, I think it just goes back into their core. That's the only way I can look at it. Really, it goes back into their core. And they say, no, we love Swami. We love Swami. And the way they take care of... it's not my own personal experience. I talked to a couple of other people who have gone to Russia. They take care of you as if you are Swami. Serious, as if you are. So they just see in you. And it's not just my feeling. The other two people that I've spoken to that have gone there, these are people...
That's true. I talked to Sandwich too, and he's been to Russia. And
that's one name, yes.
He was absolutely overwhelmed by what he saw and experienced there. Now let's come back to you. So you visited St. Petersburg and Moscow.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
See, in St. Petersburg, as usual, I landed and then I had no clue. The other thing, I'll come to your point too. The thing I want to tell you is this, at no place in this entire 29,000-mile journey, I have missed a flight. I've never missed a flight.
Mm-hmm.
I never missed my luggage. They never misplaced my reservation.
Mm-hmm.
Never missed a connection. In 29,000 miles, I flew. But anyway, so and then getting the visa for Russia is not easy. But with Swami's grace, it came in 3 days. It just came in 3 days. Mm-hmm. And again, it's Swami's grace. So, okay. So I go out of the St. Petersburg airport, not knowing what to do. Of course, there is a man with Swami's portrait saying Sai Ram. That's all those are the only English words he knows, nothing else. So then, of course, they drove me to their, retreat where they were having. And it's a beautiful place outside St. Petersburg. Very minimal accommodations. So they were nice enough to put me up with one of their, devotees who had a nice, flat of his own. But
how many people were there in the retreat?
I think it was in excess of 450 people.
Quite a large number.
Yes, because they were from 12 Russian-speaking... 12
countries.
12 countries. All Russian-speaking. There are 12 countries that speak Russian.
By any chance you remember the names of those countries?
No, I don't know. Uzbekistan, I don't know.
Oh, the former Soviet Republic.
Former Soviet Republic.
I see.
They're split into 12 countries. They still speak Russia.
Of course.
And all of them, the thing that unites them...
Did you get people from Poland and Hungary?
No, not Poland and Hungary. No.
This is all the Soviet Republics.
Soviet Republic.
12 of them.
Yeah. The only thing common for them is two. Russian language and Swami. That's it. So
there must have been people from Ukraine, Belarus.
Yes.
And things.
All of those. And they filled out the whole, actually it was a 4-day conference, but I had to, stay back first 2 days because I had to finish the, Copenhagen retreat, and then I went there. But the 2 days I was there. Now, the other thing is amazing because they warned me before, it's going to be 5 degrees, it's going to be cold, it's going to be raining. And I landed in St. Petersburg. Believe it or not, it was 18 degrees and sunny. And they said, you see the weather Swami sent for you? No, I'm not joking. Everywhere I went, the weather was totally... And Sunday is fine. Monday morning, we finished the conference. We came back to St. Petersburg. It rained, and there was a beautiful rainbow from one end of the other to the other end of St. Petersburg over the river. It was. They said, oh, you see Swami's sign, rainbow. These people, they know everything about Swami. And there's a devotee who runs 5 vegetarian restaurants in St. Petersburg.
My God.
Yes, 5 vegetarian.
Are there people to come and eat?
Oh, no, it's full. It's really full. It's so nice. And so then he has a small section on one side just for Swami devotees. Mm-hmm. The other, and there I walk in, we all have our favoritisms. Mine is always Ishvara. Whatever it is, it's Ishvara for me. And that's why I always say Shai Ishvara. So they take me to this side. Let me sit in front of the table, and I look up. Right in front of me is Shiva and Parvati. And on the other side is Ganesha. Totally vegetarian
Family
restaurant. Family reunion. Totally vegetarian restaurant. And they took such good care. And like I said, and of course, the Russian translation, was very good. And it was really, and they just listened to every word. And then I also participated in some of their other activities. How sincere they are in having roundtable conferences, from 1.5 hours in the afternoon was roundtable conferences. One was purely on education system, and one was purely on service, one was on meditation, like this. So they divide into subgroups and brainstorm. Really, they gave me a interpreter to follow, so I kept going.
What is the sort of dominant impression you get from your global tour? You've been to Latin America, you've been to Central America, you've been to Australia, you've been to Europe and to Russia. What is the thing that stands out?
It's Sai's kingdom.
Sai's kingdom is the whole universe.
I know, that's what I know. You see, I thought I was going to go and tell them my experiences, but I told them in Russia, it's very interesting. This person asked, you are so lucky that Swami sent you and we were able to listen to all your nice experiences. And I said, excuse me, I thought so when I left, but now I will tell you, you are not the lucky one. I am the lucky one that Swami sent me. So your
lecture tour became an educational tour.
Totally educational tour.
Now this is not an exactly easy question. If I asked you to compare the responses of the different people to Swami, would you say it's like comparing apples and oranges and quit? Or would you like to make an attempt?
In the core of it, they're all apples. There are no apples and oranges in this. Seriously, there are all apples.
Okay, in that case, I want to ask you, you have countries with different social and political backgrounds. You take a country like Haiti, and Russia, and then Amsterdam, Italy, and Australia, and so forth. What is it about Swami that appeals to them?
I think the thing that really appeals to them is the love and service. Seriously, the two aspects of Swami that appeals to them is the love that literally emanates from Swami, all of us can feel, and the amount of service Swami has done to people.
Okay, sir, since you come from America and you're an American citizen, let me ask you this question. How ready is America for Swami's love?
I think, it is getting ready, definitely getting ready.
How long does it need to get more ready?
I think this decade, we will see literally in California alone, where I come from the state, we must have in excess of 25, 30 centers. And I have my own theory. Nobody can prove or disprove it. You see, we have the biggest earthquake faults running right through California. Especially Los Angeles, San Andreas Fault and things. My feeling, sincerely, it comes from the bottom of my heart. I think the California is still together because of Swami centers and the energy that's emanating from Swami centers. For example,
but what I'm trying to ask you is, if you take countries like Latin America or Russia, there are no NRIs, to put it very plainly. And yet Swami's message has taken strong roots. Whereas if you come to the United States of America and Canada, for that matter, for whatever be the reason, the bulk of the strength of the centers in terms of numbers comes from the NRIs. In fact, that's true in UK also. The mainstream citizens, for some reason, are not yet taking interest in Swami. Is it due to sociological and other factors, or is there something else? In other words, in terms of, ethnicity, the people of Russia are white, so are the mainstream Americans, and yet there's a big difference in their response to Swami. Do you have any thoughts on why this difference arises?
I think the reason it arises is American society as it is totally a materialistic society. It has to
but
be.
Then, at some point, people who are materialists start getting fed up.
No, that's what I'm saying. So for them, the change has to be, like we used the word the other day, their brain have to be defragmented, seriously defragmented. And I think it is happening, really happening, because I will tell you, for the first time, they are rediscovering marriage. They're rediscovering family as a unit.
Mm-hmm.
And it is happening in America as we speak. To me, that's the first sign of, change in the society.
Getting back to normal. The fever is coming now.
Yes, coming back to normal.
So that's very good to hear.
Yes. And I think they will come to know about... it's coming on slowly but surely, because I go to retreats, and the retreats are biggest retreats are in New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, where we get about 800-900 people for the retreat. Oh yes, 800-900 people for the retreat. Especially the retreat in New York gotten so big they had to split it into 2 retreats.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be only one, which is called North Atlantic Retreat. Now they made it into 2. So the message is coming across. But in everything in America, like I said, it's a crash course in the sense they have to hit very hard. Like, I'll tell you one other very simple, practical example. Children have so much obesity because they eat such an awful food. It's off the topic, but I'll still tell you. There's a city district in Los Angeles. It's divided into districts. It's called Whittier School District. There's an Indian lady who is a dietitian. She introduced fruits, juices, no Coke, no pizza, and salads in the school.
Mm-hmm.
And they loved it.
She wasn't fired.
No, she wasn't fired. Not only that, they wrote such a beautiful article in LA Times saying that this is what we have to do in the other school districts.
Mm-hmm.
So if that thing can happen, yes, anything is possible.
Just as Russia clicked like that, you think America can also click?
Yes, it's a question of time. I think it will happen. It's a question of time.
That's very nice to hear, because, as Swami says, America is like Arjuna and Russia is like Bhima. Of course, India, it is like Yudhishthira or Dharmaputra. So Bhima has got ready.
Yes.
It's about time that Arjuna
wakes up.
And maybe if you want, you can take Krishna there to give them the Bhagavad Gita straight.
Right, yeah.
Meanwhile, of course, we are giving it to your country through the internet radio. So when you go back, you might like to tell more and more people to switch on to Radio Sai and thereby get the advantage of Krishna through the air.
Yes, definitely, sir. Definitely.
This is the 21st century, so Krishna need not directly come.
No.
He can come through Radio Sai.
No, internet is the most...
being facetious, but the point is that Swami's message... incidentally, you were talking about Latin America. Do you know the Latin American people send programs to us here in Puttaparthi, and we broadcast it over internet radio, and it's being heard all the way from Mexico to Chile.
Yes.
It's being done regularly. Now they are slowly increasing their quota.
Yes, I believe it.
So we are having something like a Spanish channel.
Yeah, definitely. It will come.
It's picking up.
It will come.
Well, Dr. Choudary, what are your plans? Where are you going next? I mean, on your tours, not going back home and things like that. Do you feel you have lost touch? You're a surgeon, your hands have become stale and things like that?
No, pretty much I'm retired now, sir.
Oh, you're retired?
I'm retired. I'm retired from active cardiac surgery.
So you are being retired by Swami.
Retired by Swami.
As a global messenger.
It's very funny. And everywhere I go, after a while, they tell me, hey, you are Swami's messenger. You're Swami's messenger. And I'm so...
Messenger who doesn't ask for tips.
Yeah, no, I don't. That's very interesting. That was another very nice, because the emails I get are so... one of the most beautiful email, you would not believe this, I'll share it with you, is from an anesthesiologist in Perth. He has a beautiful house, and the entire upstairs attic is converted into a puja room for Swami. So he has been praying, Swami, send me a message.
He sent you a messenger. He sent him a messenger.
That's exactly what he sent me, an email afterwards. And he's a 72-year-old anesthesiologist. And he's a very lovely man. He's the center president. And he sent me an email and he said, now I have an answer from Swami. And he sent you as a messenger. And then I'll tell you one other thing which impressed me more than anything else. In Perth for this retreat, most of these retreats on Saturday evening is reserved for youth program. But for some reason, they decided to do this youth program on Friday evening. And they have gotten this beautiful auditorium, which is like a shrine auditorium where we do, Oscars and things like that. This auditorium seats 2,300 people. And the stage at any given time can hold 140 people. And on that Friday evening, that auditorium was full. Not with Swami devotees. It's all free. It's free. It's advertised beforehand. And it's totally filled. And
the youth program.
No, not my program. No, it's the youth program.
That's what I meant.
Youth program. And they fully costumes. They rehearsed only once before. That's all. They rehearsed once without costumes. Once kind of, costumes. The final performance is with costumes. This is the first time they've done it. It's a 3-hour program with a half-an-hour intermission. And the first entire row of 100 seats they took off, put it for wheelchair, handicapped people. And J31 was reserved for Swami. They put a rose in that seat, make sure the seat was flat, and J32 was for me to sit next to Swami. And the whole 2,300 seats were filled. And
what is the program on?
It's called From the Beginning. And it's a musical program done totally by Sai Youth. It's the most spectacular. It is a spectacle for divinity. It's a spectacle for divinity.
Very nice to hear. On that wonderful note, I will end this conversation for the time being. And before I thank you, I'd like to say, please travel more, come back and talk more.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you.
It has been my pleasure. Sai Ram, thank you.